September. I'm so excited to be sitting down with you to talk through this article today. I would love if you would just start off by telling us who this article is written to.
Yeah, I wrote this article thinking about husbands of wives that have recently had a baby, maybe their first child, maybe second, third, fourth, and their wife is experiencing postpartum depression, maybe for the first time, or maybe she's experienced with previous pregnancies, but he hasn't really known how to be helpful, and he's looking to see how can I be most supportive, most helpful to my wife who's suffering from postpartum depression.
Yeah, it's super important. I don't have any kids, but I have a lot of friends who do have kids, have experienced this, and I have seen, marriages struggle through it. Husbands try and figure out how to help, and it can just be a really dark, really lonely space. So
Yeah.
I'm super excited to just hear your insight and a little more about this article. So I would love if you would just start by explaining what postpartum depression is.
Yeah, definitely. Postpartum depression is depressive symptoms that we see that usually occur at least 4 weeks after giving birth to up to a year. Sometimes we do see the symptoms before the woman would give birth. But some of the symptoms that you look out for are she's feeling sad. She has a loss of interest. She's feeling hopeless. You might also notice just some moodiness, irritability, crying spells. She also may not feel like she's connected to her baby, or she may feel like the baby belongs to someone else. She also may be saying things like, I'm a bad mom. She doesn't have a whole lot of energy, motivation to get things done. You also may see just kind of like a change in appetite, eating a lot, eating less. Change in sleep, which is kind of a different one because when you just have a baby, of course, you're going to have lack of sleep, but it might be just a drastic change from what you're used to. Also, you might see that she's struggling with lack of concentration, difficulty making decisions. She also may be isolating herself, just really not wanting to be social as she used to. If you notice some of these symptoms, you don't have to have all of them to be diagnosed with postpartum depression, but I usually recommend if people are seeing 2 or 3, at least go and talk to her OBGYN just to have an assessment done, just so have a connection and see if that is what's going on. In the article, I talk about with therapy and medication that it's a very treatable diagnosis. So definitely asking for support with it.
Right. Yeah. And one of the first things that you mention in the article, to spouses of someone going through this is communication and how key that is. And I would just love if you would kind of expand on that idea a little bit, how to communicate with her in a way that does not make her feel like a burden, which I'm sure, there's a lot of shame attached to postpartum depression. So I would love just your insight on that. How do you communicate effectively?
Yeah, I think with the husband going into it, making sure that his viewpoint isn't to try to fix it, because that's not what she needs right now. What she needs is for you to be understanding and just validate how she's feeling, and really trying not to mind read. So it just might be something if she's coming and talking to you about, hey, I've really had a difficult day, I'm not feeling like a good mom, you could just say something, reflect back her feelings and just say, it sounds like you're really struggling with just being the mom that you want to be. And then telling her just some encouragement that I see how much you sacrifice for our child, and I know you're a good mom, and I appreciate you so much. And so that's just an example of validation, listening, without trying to just fix the issue.
I love that. And then, when it comes to, like you said earlier, seeking medical advice, going to your OBGYN and talking with them, how can a husband come alongside in that with her?
Yes. Unfortunately, with mental illness, there's so much stigma with it, and especially postpartum depression. And I love how people have come out and talked about their own experiences. So it's been, hey, let's get help for this. And so I would say that it's very important that the husband, if the wife has said, hey, I'm really struggling, just being supportive of, hey, let's go talk to someone. Maybe you're struggling with it, maybe you're not, but let's get as much support as we can. And once you've made a decision to make an appointment, husband saying, hey, I want to come with you if you feel comfortable with that. I'll make room for that. Or, hey, if you want to go and this be your time, I'm going to make sure we find a babysitter for the kids, or just to make sure that she has that time to care for herself and see that as an important piece of what she's going through right now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And, I think when it comes to deciding whether or not you need medical care, of course, there's conversations leading up to that. So when it comes to initiating those conversations, should he be initiating that? Is that, the right thing to do? Is it appropriate? Is it always necessary? You don't want to make her feel like a burden or something like that. But, does he kind of need to be the one initiating those conversations?
It really depends on the situation. Some women will just notice something's off and so they'll initiate it. But if he's noticing certain things that are just concerning, like maybe she's isolating herself, or maybe he they're not having conversations like they used to. She's just being noticing she's really sad or really just struggling being a mom. He might bring it up like saying, "Hey, I've just noticed that you're not getting together with your friends as much, and I'm just concerned about that because I know how much that meant to you. I'm wondering if it would be helpful if we could talk about that, or maybe we should talk with someone just about if you're just having trouble with adjusting to being a mom because it is so stressful." And so the important piece of that conversation is just pointing out what you're noticing, and in a way kind of letting her know you're not judging her through that. You want to help her and you want to be that support for her and walk alongside her as she's seeking treatment.
So true. Yeah. And, it can be a hard space to be in, I think, for the husband as well, just feeling that like maybe helplessness or that fighting that urge to fix it when it's not something he can fix. So you do mention, self-care and the importance of the spouse having moments to care for himself so that he can pour out to her. You can't pour from an empty cup. So when you talk through that, you talk about specifically acknowledging your abilities as the spouse. And so I would love it if you could just expand on what that means, what that is, how that can be done.
Yeah, definitely. So most husbands are probably, after their wife has a baby, able to stay home with her maybe 2 weeks, and then they're going back to full-time work. But they also want to be supportive of their wife. So understanding you can't do everything. And so recognizing, okay, I want to be helpful to her. So what can I do? How can I come alongside her and maybe help her with the housework, or help her along with helping with the baby care, or whatever it looks like. And then acknowledging, okay, that's what I can do. Maybe I need to ask for help from other places. And it's okay that I can't do everything. And it's okay that I'm not like her superhero rescuing her from everything. And as well as just acknowledging that you need self-care, that you can't give her everything she needs without filling in yourself, whether that's definitely Bible studies, your own exercise, your own support group and guys that you trust, and just making time for all of those things.
That's really good. You talked a little bit earlier about what postpartum depression can look like. And I think, I wonder when it comes to anger and frustration and just those kind of mood swings that might happen, how do you not take that personally as a spouse? Those complaints or hurtful words, how do you not take those personally?
Yeah, that is a difficult one because she may say something that really cuts into something that you struggle with. And so I think that the first piece of it is maybe asking for some space, just letting her know, hey, what we're talking about right now, I'm feeling a lot of emotion or I'm just struggling with. Can we just have some space to cool down, and let's come and talk about this in a half hour tonight or tomorrow. And then him, going and just letting her know, hey, when this was said, I felt this way. And I know we're really stressed right now, but I just want you to know that I care about you, but I also want to make sure we're caring for each other. As well as maybe something came up and he really has to look inside of himself and think about, what did that touch upon for me? Maybe I need to go and talk with a friend or my own counselor about things that I'm struggling with. And so just realizing that some of those comments may be out of stress, maybe out of irritation, and in the moment that anger came out, but that's not really what she meant. So that coming back and talking about it is really important so we can understand one another.
And that just goes back to the first, part of
Yeah.
the article, just communication and how important that is.
Yes.
Awesome. Absolutely. Well, you also, kind of the last thing that you touch on in your article,
Mhm.
for husbands, for spouses to just be mindful of during that season is sex. And, obviously an important part of marriage, obviously a God designed part of marriage. But how do you address that? That can be a really touchy subject for her, in postpartum depression and just after having a baby. How do you address that beforehand? What should be discussed, communicated, leading up to having the baby?
Definitely. I think there needs to be a conversation before even the baby comes because usually the OBGYN recommends, hey, no sex after 6 weeks when you have the baby. And so have to identify, okay, there's going to be that period, but then also things may be different when you guys are able to connect again. And definitely need to talk about expectations and what you think things are going to be like, and we have to talk about it. Couples have trouble even before having a baby talking about sex, so we have to get comfortable having this conversation, or they do together. And just the husband realizing that after his wife has a baby, she's going to be just insecure probably about her body and tired, stressed out. And so there may be more of that physical touching and cuddling with maybe not leading to sex, just being together. And him acknowledging that he's going to have patience and understand she may not be ready yet, and that's okay. There's other ways that we can connect and feel together, and just acknowledging as well that it's more about when we do have sex, it's about us enjoying one another and just connecting together. Some things that he can do is complimenting her on, like, I am so happy that you're the mother of my child and you look so beautiful today. Acknowledging the hardships that she's doing, the sacrifices she's making, breastfeeding, cleaning, maybe she's staying home now, and just acknowledging those things can also improve the connection in the sexual relationship.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's like you said, I think that there has been a stigma around postpartum depression, and I am so glad that people are talking about it now, that husbands are recognizing it, that are picking up on it. And I just think it's really important, and that this article is timely and so special. And I really just appreciate you sitting down with me, kind of talking through it. And I hope that our viewers will give it a read and really reflect on ways that they can be effective, husbands can be effective for their wives in that time.
Yes. Thank you so much.